A man stepped into the wedding hall holding a small envelope, and every camera turned toward him. He wasn't on the list. He wasn't dressed like the others. He didn't smile. He didn't clap. He stood there with shaking hands, staring straight at the groom, the ex-billionaire who once ruled the news. In that moment, nobody knew his name. Nobody knew why he came. But everyone felt one thing. Something was about to break. Kira Lorne, the new bride, held her bouquet with pride. Her smile was wide. Her dress glittered under the lights. Guests whispered about her beauty, her style, her influence. Yet her eyes locked on the stranger with a sharp mix of fear and frustration. Rylan Crestmore froze. The same Rylan who once had the world at his feet. The same Rylan who left his wife after an affair he never explained. He took one step back when he saw the envelope. And that was all the stranger needed. He walked closer to the mic. Security stepped in. Rylan raised a hand. Let him speak. The room fell silent. A secret hidden for years was about to explode in front of the richest guests in Boston. Have you ever watched someone move on from you, only to learn later that their new life was built on a lie? Have you ever asked yourself why a person changed so fast, or why their heart turned away? This story touches betrayal, healing, the truth that hides behind quiet smiles, and the pain people carry in silence. Stay with me, because what this man revealed at that wedding changed 3 lives forever. And what Mira Solis learned afterward will teach you something about love, dignity, and strength. Welcome to Mr. Charles Stories. If you enjoy deep stories that teach life lessons, take a second to like this video and tell me where you're watching from. Your support helps this channel grow. Now, let's begin. The wedding looked perfect, but the truth inside that envelope was not. The hall felt like a stage. Bright lights, sparkling decorations, rows of guests dressed in expensive clothes. Every seat filled, every camera lifted, everyone waiting to see the wedding of the year. Kira Lorne stood in the center with a proud smile, wearing a dress that glittered under the crystal chandeliers. Rylan Crestmore stood beside her, trying to hide the tension in his eyes. But the moment the stranger stepped into the aisle, the entire room shifted. He walked slowly, careful steps, shoulders tight. His hands held a small beige envelope that looked out of place in a hall filled with gold and diamonds. No one recognized him. He was not a part of the high-end crowd. He moved like a man forced by truth, not by confidence. Kira narrowed her eyes. Rylan went pale. Cameras turned in his direction, catching every detail. Whispers spread across the hall like small sparks. Who is he? Why is he holding an envelope? Is this planned? The music stopped. The chatter stopped. Security moved forward. But the stranger kept walking, shoulders tense, breathing unsteady, eyes focused straight on Rylan like nothing else mattered. Rylan lifted a hand toward the guards. It's fine. Let him speak. His voice cracked on the last word. The stranger stepped toward the mic at the front of the aisle. He held the envelope tight, almost crushing it. He swallowed hard. Then he looked out at the crowd of hundreds. I'm sorry to interrupt, he said, voice shaking. But this needs to be said. Kira shot Rylan a sharp look, as if asking, what is this? Rylan looked away. The stranger hesitated, then raised the envelope. This, he said, is about Crestmore Technologies. The wedding hall froze. Some guests looked confused. Others leaned in. A few covered their mouths. Everyone knew the story. Everyone had heard how Rylan lost everything in a merger gone wrong. The media praised him for his graceful exit. His new wife smiled in interviews, calling the shift a fresh start. But this man's voice carried a truth that cut through all the noise. You didn't lose that company through a merger, he said. You took the blame for something that wasn't yours. Gasps filled the hall. Kira's eyes widened. Rylan stepped back. The stranger continued. And I'm the one who reviewed the internal report. He opened the envelope. His hands shook, but he stayed steady enough to unfold the papers. I warned myself not to come here. I told myself this wasn't my place. But I kept thinking about Mira Solis. The woman you hurt. The woman who walked away without knowing the truth. Kira frowned. Why mention her? She snapped. The stranger turned toward her. Because she deserved honesty. And she never got it. Kira took a sharp breath, as if the room had suddenly turned cold. Rylan closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again with fear he couldn't hide. The stranger faced the crowd. You all think Rylan lost his company because of investor pressure. That's the public story, but the real story is that someone shifted funds through a shell group and used his access to hide it. He paused. It wasn't him. Many guests stared at Rylan, confused. Some looked at Kira. Her jaw tightened. The stranger's voice grew steadier. Rylan took the fall to protect someone else, someone he trusted, someone he thought he loved. A ripple of whispers rushed through the hall. Kira stepped back slightly. The stranger pointed at her. He did it for her. The guests gasped again, louder. Kira's eyes burned with shock. That's a lie, she said sharply. The stranger shook his head. No, you shifted the funds. You hid the movement through his access. You put him at risk. When the board discovered it, he covered for you. He walked away before they pressed charges. He protected you. He lost everything. He placed the report on the table in front of the couple. Here is the proof. Kira turned to Rylan, her voice shaky. Why didn't you tell me he had this? Rylan didn't answer. Instead, he stared at the report like it wasn't paper, but a weight he had carried for years. The crowd watched in silence. Phones raised. Cameras flashed. Whispers spread like fire. The stranger looked at Rylan with a soft, tired expression. You weren't weak. You were trapped. He turned toward the guests. And Mira Solis was dragged into pain she never deserved. She blamed herself for a change that had nothing to do with her. She walked away from a man who never explained the storms he was drowning in. Kira stepped back again. Her grip on her bouquet loosened. Rylan lowered his head. His voice was soft, but the mic caught every word. I didn't want to bring her into this. The stranger looked at him. But you brought her into something worse. Silence. The room went still. Kira spoke in a low voice. Why ruin my wedding? The stranger faced her without anger. Because the truth matters. And she deserved it. He nodded at the envelope. You built this new life on a secret. And secrets like that need to be exposed. Security did not move. Guests stared. The bride trembled. The groom looked broken. The stranger stepped back from the mic, leaving the envelope on the table where all the cameras could see it. He whispered one last line that echoed through the hall. She walked away with dignity. You should have walked away with honesty. Then he turned and left through the side aisle, vanishing into the crowd as if he was never there. The hall stayed silent long after he disappeared. Kira's breathing was shallow. Rylan looked down at his hands. Guests whispered behind their menus. Phones buzzed with live posts. Reporters rushed outside to speak first. The wedding was no longer a celebration. It was a scandal. Rylan tried to speak, but the words stuck in his throat. Kira stepped back from him, as if she could no longer trust the air around them. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Rylan whispered, I thought I could protect you. By lying to me. Rylan didn't answer. Her voice turned sharp. Do you love me? Rylan hesitated. That silence was enough. Kira lowered her bouquet. She turned her face away from the cameras. Her pride, her confidence, her perfect posture, everything shifted. Guests began to leave in small groups. Some tried not to stare. Others whispered openly. A few shook their heads. The event staff paused their work. Janny Verne, in the back corner near the desserts, held her breath. She had worked hard for this job. She needed the paycheck. But she also knew Mira. She felt the weight of what she had just witnessed. She pulled out her phone and typed a short message. Mira, something happened. You won't believe it. But she didn't send it yet. She waited. She wanted to see how the groom handled the fallout. Rylan moved toward the envelope. He touched it lightly. The room watched him. He whispered, almost too soft to hear, I'm sorry. Kira said nothing. She turned around and walked away from the altar, her heels clicking through the silence, each step louder than the last. The luxury wedding was over before the vows were even spoken. Rylan stood alone under the lights. His eyes looked empty. Security escorted some guests out. Staff tried to regain control. Photographers flashed their last shots. Jani finally sent the message. Mira, far away in her quiet townhouse, had no idea her life was about to shift again. The truth she never received was now out in the open, and the man she once loved was standing in the wreckage of his own choices. The first crack had appeared at a small hotel a year ago, but today the whole truth broke open. And this was only the beginning. The wedding hall did not recover. Even after the stranger left, the room felt frozen. Guests shifted in their seats, unsure if they should stay or leave. Some whispered carefully. Others looked at their phones, already scrolling through posts about what happened. Rylan Cressmore stood at the front of the hall, alone, silent and pale. Kira stood a few feet away from him, gripping her bouquet so tightly the stems bent under her fingers. Nobody moved toward them. Nobody offered comfort. Nobody tried to restart the celebration. This was no longer a wedding. This was the fallout of a truth nobody expected to hear today. Rylan looked at Kyra again. She avoided his eyes. He took a small step toward her. She stepped back. "Kyra," he whispered. She shook her head and turned away from him. Her chest rose and fell with fast breaths. Her perfect image from earlier had cracked. Her eyes darted from face to face, searching for someone who would defend her. No one did. Her voice trembled. Why would he say those things? Why would he lie about me? Rylan did not answer. He looked at the envelope again, lying there on the table, untouched, exposed under the lights. Cameras captured every angle. Some guests even zoomed in to read the edges of the papers inside. A reporter near the back whispered to her partner, "This is bigger than we expected." Kara walked toward Rylan with anger rising in her steps. "You let him talk," she said. "Why?" "Because stopping him would have made it worse," Rylan answered softly. "So you let him embarrass us?" Rylan's voice grew even lower. He wasn't lying. Kira froze. Guests gasped again. Some lifted their phones higher. Her face turned pale. "You're saying he told the truth? He told the entire room that I—" Rylan held up a hand, not to silence her, but because he didn't know what to say. His shoulders dropped. His head lowered. Shame lined every part of his expression. Kira stared at him like she no longer recognized the man she married. "This is the first day of our marriage," she said. "And you bring this disaster into it?" "I didn't bring it," Rylan said. "It was already here." Kira's eyes filled with frustration, not tears. Her voice sharpened with each word. "Do you think anyone here will respect me after this? Do you think the media won't twist this? Do you think my family won't ask questions?" Rylan let the silence answer for him. Kira took a step closer and lowered her voice. "You should have stopped him. You should have protected me." Rylan looked up at her, hurt filling his eyes. "I already did," he said quietly. "I did it for years." Kira blinked. She had no reply. She turned away again, this time toward her mother, who had been watching from the front row with sharp eyes and tight lips. Her mother stood and walked quickly to her side, taking her by the arm. "Kira, we're leaving," her mother said. "This wedding is over." Kira didn't resist. She didn't argue. She let her mother lead her away from the stage. As they walked past the guests, some tried to look sympathetic. Others looked judgmental. Most looked uncomfortable. Kara kept her chin high, but her steps were quick. The moment she reached the exit, the photographers outside rushed closer. Her mother blocked them with firm gestures. Security pushed them back, but it was too late. The flashes caught everything. Inside the hall, Rylan stayed where he was. His posture slumped. His hands dropped to his sides. He stared at the spot where Kyra had stood, as if hoping she would turn back. She didn't. A man in a dark suit from the event staff approached him slowly. "Sir, do you want us to clear the hall?" Rylan didn't answer for a moment. He looked around the room. Every pair of eyes was on him. Some waited for him to speak. Some waited for him to break. Some waited for another truth. He swallowed hard. "Yes," he said. "Clear it." The staff member nodded and signaled the team. People began to leave. Some quickly, some slowly, some with glances over their shoulders. The energy of the room shifted from shock to discomfort, but Janny Verne stayed behind. She had a reason. She watched him from the far corner, behind a table filled with untouched pastries. Her hands rested on her apron. Her heart beat faster than usual. She wanted to leave like the others. She wanted to avoid the noise and the chaos. But she knew she needed to tell Mira. Not for drama, not for gossip, but because Mira deserved to know the truth. Still, she waited. Something told her to stay a few more minutes. Ryland sat down on one of the chairs near the front. He rubbed his temples. His breathing was shallow, uneven. His suit looked stiff and out of place now. His eyes carried years of regret that he never allowed to surface. The envelope lay on the table, inches away from him. He stared at it. He didn't touch it. He didn't need to. He knew what was inside. He had lived with its content every day. After a long silence, he finally whispered to himself, "I should have told her." The hall was almost empty now. A few staff members cleaned up. A few photographers lingered outside. Janny watched him for a few more seconds before walking toward the exit. But halfway out, she hesitated. She turned and looked at him again. His face broke her heart, not because she had pity, but because she had known Mira. She had seen Mira cry in silence after the divorce. She had seen Mira blame herself for months. She had seen a good woman hurt without knowing why. Now she knew. Janny stepped outside and felt the cold air hit her face. She pulled out her phone and stared at Mira's name in her contact list. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Then she finally pressed send. Inside Mira's townhouse, Mira Solis sat in her living room, reading a soft novel she had picked up from a local bookstore. Her small cat was curled at her feet. The warm lamp beside her cast a gentle glow over the room. Her phone buzzed. She reached over and picked it up. A message from Janny. She read the first line. "Mira, something big happened at Ryland's wedding." Mira froze. She read the next line. "You need to know the truth." Her heart beat once, slow and heavy. She waited for the familiar sting, the fear, the sadness, the pain linked to her past. But none of those came. Instead, she felt calm, steady, different. She leaned back on her couch, took a breath, opened the next message. The truth inside those messages would shift everything she thought she knew. It would answer old questions she had buried long ago. It would bring closure she never expected, and it would free her heart in ways she didn't realize she needed. Before she finished reading, her phone buzzed again. Another message. "Mira," he covered for her. "You never knew. You were never the problem." Her eyes softened. Her hand lowered slowly. The past had found its way back to her door, and she had no idea how much it was about to change. Long before her life crossed paths with Ryland Cressmore, Mira Solis lived in a world far removed from loud events, viral attention, or luxury weddings. She grew up in a small coastal town outside Providence, a place where people waved from porches. Children rode bikes without fear, and neighbors treated each other like extended family. Her town had no high-rise buildings, no heavy traffic, no noise from crowds, only quiet streets lined with trees and small shops that closed before sunset. It was the kind of place where the cafe owner knew your order before you spoke, and the librarian recommended books based on your mood. Mira liked that. She liked knowing exactly what her days would feel like. She liked waking up to calm mornings with soft light peeking into her room. Her life was simple, but it was full. She worked at a small wellness clinic where she supported patients with nutrition plans and health guidance. She was patient, soft-spoken. She listened more than she talked. Her clients trusted her because she paid attention to details others ignored. She reminded them to drink water, stay active, and give their bodies care. She believed care came from routine, not from rush. She never chased anything loud. not wealth, not fame, not attention. She had seen what loud lives did to people. She watched old friends who moved to busy cities come back with tired eyes and restless hearts. She promised herself she would avoid that path. Her mornings started with warm tea. Her evenings ended with soft walks near the shore. Her nights were filled with peaceful reading or writing small reflections in her journal. She liked warm blankets, soft clothes, and quiet music. She liked steady connections, not rushed ones. She liked deep talks, not shallow praise. Love, to her, had to feel safe. It had to feel steady. She wanted a partner who understood calm living, not someone who needed crowds to feel alive. But she had dated before. She had tried, and each attempt ended the same way. Men would admire her calm nature at first. Then, they would grow restless. They wanted excitement. They wanted fast plans and late nights. They said she was too soft, too peaceful, too predictable. She didn't resent them. She simply accepted that her heart moved differently. She wanted a life where the biggest rush came from love, not noise. Her mother often told her, "Your peace is a gift. Don't trade it for anything." Mira held onto those words like a promise. Still, a part of her wondered if love like that existed. She saw couples in town holding hands after decades together. She saw wives fixing their husbands' collars before they walked into church. She saw old couples sharing meals with soft laughs and tender looks. She wanted that, but she didn't want to force it. During her quiet moments, she often reflected on what she desired in a partner. Not someone rich, not someone powerful, not someone with influence. She wanted someone steady, someone who understood silence, someone who could sit beside her without needing to fill every minute with words, someone who valued trust, someone who saw her softness not as weakness, but as strength. But she did not search for love. She believed love came when hearts were ready. She focused on work. She helped clients who struggled with weight issues, hormonal balance, emotional eating, or stress. Many of them opened up to her during their sessions. "You listen well," they would say. "You make people feel calm." She didn't do it on purpose. She simply cared. Outside of work, Mira gave time to a small women's group in town. They met twice a month to share stories, fears, goals, and lessons. Mira often listened quietly, but offered thoughtful words when needed. She didn't see herself as a leader. She saw herself as a helper, a guide when asked, a support when needed. She lived alone, but she never felt lonely. Her home was warm, with soft colors and simple furniture. She placed plants near the windows and kept fresh fruit in a bowl on her table. The smell of lavender filled her living room. Her bookshelf held novels, wellness journals, and recipe collections. Her life was not grand, but it was full of peace. And peace, to her, was worth everything. Every Sunday she visited the local farmer's market. She knew the vendors by name. She bought fresh vegetables, herbs, and honey. She talked with an older woman named Myra, who sold baked goods, and always asked about her week. She hugged a young mother she once helped through postpartum health issues. She played with a toddler who always handed her a flower. This was the life she built for herself. Not rushed, not loud, not demanding. It was the opposite of Rylan Crestmore's world. But at this point in her life, she had never heard his name. She didn't know about his company. She didn't know about his fame. She didn't know about his quiet struggles. She had no idea that her peaceful world was about to cross paths with a man who carried storms behind his eyes. If Mira had been asked that year what she pictured for her future, she would have said, a steady home, a partner who respects peace, a simple life with small joys. Her focus was not on finding a perfect man. She focused on finding inner balance, on giving her best to her work, and on living with intention. Sometimes during her walks near the shore, she would pause to watch couples passing by. Some held hands. Some walked in silence. Some pushed strollers. Some laughed softly. She would smile at them, not with longing, but with trust. She trusted that life brought the right people at the right time, and she trusted that love, when true, never rushed. One evening, while closing the clinic, she stood by the front desk organizing patient files. She brushed her hair behind her ear and locked the last cabinet. The sun had begun to set, casting a warm glow through the glass doors. She grabbed her bag, ready to head home, ready for another peaceful night. That was when the receptionist said, "Mira, someone is waiting for you." She turned. A man sat in the waiting area. His posture was tired, his tie loosened, his eyes lowered, as if a heavy weight rested on his shoulders. He looked out of place in the quiet clinic, too worn, too distant, too lost. Mira approached him slowly. "Are you okay?" she asked. The man lifted his eyes, and she saw it clearly, exhaustion layered with something deeper. Not physical tiredness, emotional weight. He managed a small smile. "Trying to be," he said. She didn't know it then. But this one line would change her life. It would bring love, pain, healing, and truth. It would lead her down a path she never expected. This was the moment her calm world opened to someone who had forgotten peace. It was the moment she met Rylan Crestmore, and it was the moment her heart began a journey that would test everything she believed about love, trust, and strength. Mira Solis was the type of woman who understood herself well. She knew her limits, her needs, and her values. She didn't push herself into situations that drained her, and she didn't force connections that didn't feel right. Her life was shaped by quiet discipline and emotional clarity. People in her town often admired her for this. They saw her as patient, warm, and steady. She never rushed anyone. She listened without judgment. She offered support without expecting praise. But behind her calm nature was something few understood. She carried a deep desire for genuine love, not loud love, not dramatic love. A love built on trust, comfort, and peace. She wanted a partner who respected her quiet strength, someone who would sit with her during her peaceful evenings, someone who would help cook meals, take walks, and share long talks. She wanted love that felt like home, not a performance. Many people saw her soft personality and assumed she had no strong opinions. But Mira knew exactly what she wanted. She simply didn't shout about it. Her mother often said, "Your heart is calm, but it's not weak." Mira believed that. She lived by that. During her free time, she often reflected on her past. She never blamed herself for relationships that failed. She understood that some people were not meant to stay. She accepted that timing mattered. She trusted that the right love would meet her when she was ready. Her life may have seemed simple, but it was full of purpose. At the clinic, she guided patients through emotional eating issues, stress-related habits, or unhealthy routines. She believed the body healed when the mind found balance. Her advice was always clear and gentle. Small steps lead to change. She lived by that too. Outside work, she kept a journal where she wrote small notes about her day. Not long entries, just short reflections. Helped a patient feel hopeful again. Walked near the shore today. The air was cool. Bought fresh basil for dinner. Feeling grateful for peace. These little notes grounded her. Her friends from the women's group often looked to her for comfort. She wasn't loud, but she had a way of saying the right thing at the right moment. They trusted her judgment. They admired her consistency. One of her closest group members, Vera, once told her, "You don't chase peace, you carry it within you." Mira smiled at those words. She never thought of herself that way, but she appreciated the sentiment. During weekends, she took long walks through the nature trails behind her townhouse. She liked the smell of pine trees and the sound of leaves under her shoes. She liked how the wind brushed past her skin. These walks helped her clear her mind and reset her energy. She also visited the local cafe where she enjoyed warm tea and a small pastry. The owner always greeted her with a smile. "Back again, Mira?" he would ask. She nodded, appreciating the familiar routine. Routine didn't bore her. Routine comforted her. She believed consistency was underrated. She believed love stayed strong when daily acts stayed gentle. That's why the chaos she later faced with Rylan Crestmore was so far outside her world. His world had noise, pressure, cameras, and demands. Yet when she met him, She didn't see any of that. She saw someone tired, someone lonely, someone searching for peace. She saw a heart weighed down by stress, not by arrogance. Her friends often teased her for being attracted to people who looked like they needed help. But Mira didn't offer help to feel important. She offered help because she understood how heavy life could feel. Her life before meeting Rylan was calm, steady, and rooted. But she carried dreams she didn't talk about often. She dreamed of a quiet home filled with warmth, a partner who respected her softness, dinners made together, weekends spent in peaceful places, a steady love based on emotional safety. She didn't want a luxurious lifestyle. She didn't want extravagant trips. She didn't want attention. She wanted depth. That was what made her open her heart to Rylan when he entered her life. He didn't look like a billionaire. He didn't act entitled. He didn't carry the energy of someone used to getting his way. He looked like a man who wanted rest. And Mira had rest to give. But that was in the future. At this stage of her life, she lived without knowing that her world was about to change. She had no idea that the man she would one day marry was living through problems she couldn't imagine. On the day she met Rylan for the first time, she had spent her morning helping an older patient adjust her diet after surgery. She had gone over vitamin plans, hydration routines, and calming techniques. She had taken her time, offering patience and kindness. She liked knowing she made someone's day lighter. After finishing her shift, she organized her desk, closed the nutrition files, and pulled her hair into a neat tie. She grabbed her bag and prepared to leave. Then the receptionist called out, "Mira, someone is waiting for you." She didn't expect anyone. She thought maybe a confused patient returned with a question. She walked toward the waiting area with her calm smile ready. Then she saw him. A man sitting on the edge of the chair, shoulders slumped, suit rumpled, eyes full of exhaustion. He didn't look up at first. He rubbed his forehead as if trying to push away a heavy thought. Mira paused for a second, sensing something deeper. She stepped closer. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. The man lifted his head. Their eyes met, and she saw it instantly. This wasn't normal stress. This was the kind of weight people carry when their lives feel too heavy. He took a slow breath. "Trying to be," he said. That was the truth in its simplest form. Not dramatic, not emotional, just real. Mira didn't know anything about him. Not his name, not his background, not his company, not his troubles. But she saw a man who needed gentleness. Something inside her softened. She walked toward him. "How can I help you?" she asked. He finally managed a small, tired smile. "I'm here for a referral," he said. "And maybe some advice." Mira nodded, her calm presence steady as always. "I can help with both." At that moment, something shifted in the quiet clinic lobby. Something simple, something gentle, something that would change her life. That day marked the beginning of a story she never expected. A story of love, loss, truth, and renewal. Before Rylan Crestmore broke her heart, he entered her life softly. Before he shattered her trust, he touched her soul with honesty. Before he dragged her into storms, he found comfort in her calm world. Mira didn't know the chapters ahead. She didn't know the pain or the healing waiting for her. She didn't know that her heart would be tested and rebuilt. All she knew in that moment was this. Her quiet life was about to meet a man she would love deeply and lose painfully. If you're still with me, tell me in the comments. Do you believe calm people attract troubled hearts, or is it pure timing? Your thoughts help us grow this community. The air in the wellness clinic felt calm that afternoon. Soft music played from small speakers. The front desk held neatly organized files. The scent of herbal lotion floated through the hall. It was the kind of place people walked into to breathe and slow down. Mira had finished most of her appointments for the day. She planned to tidy her office, close the charts, and head home early. She wanted a warm cup of tea, a quiet dinner, and a peaceful night. She was about to step into her office when the receptionist called her name again. "Mira, someone is waiting for you." "Someone? At this hour?" She turned toward the waiting area. At first glance, she thought the man sitting there had simply had a long day. But as she stepped closer, she saw something deeper in the way he held his shoulders. His suit looked expensive, but it was wrinkled. His tie was loosened. His hair was slightly messy, as if he had run his hands through it too many times. His eyes carried quiet exhaustion. He looked like someone who had spent years holding a heavy burden and had finally run out of strength. Mira walked toward him with her usual calm presence. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. The man lifted his head. Their eyes met. His gaze held a mix of fatigue and heaviness, but also relief that someone had spoken to him with real concern. "Trying to be," he answered. Mira nodded. She didn't push him with questions. She didn't judge. She simply took a seat across from him. Her quiet presence made it easy for people to open up. She didn't do it intentionally. It was just who she was. "I'm Mira," she said gently. "How can I help you today?" He hesitated. Then he let out a slow breath. "My name is Rylan," he said. "I needed a referral. But I think I also needed a moment to breathe." His voice carried truth. No rehearsed tone. No performance. Just honesty. Mira offered a small, warm smile. "You can breathe here," she said. He nodded, grateful. For a few seconds, he didn't speak. He looked around the room as if absorbing the atmosphere. The calm colors, the soft lighting, the steady silence. It felt different from the world he came from. A world Mira knew nothing about. Not yet. She asked, "What kind of referral do you need?" He took a folded paper from his pocket and handed it to her. His hand shook slightly as he did. She noticed, but didn't mention it. She opened the paper and read the notes from another doctor. "You're dealing with stress-related symptoms," she said softly. He nodded. "Work has been intense." He paused. "That's putting it lightly." She looked at the document again. It listed symptoms: fatigue, sleep disruption, loss of appetite, chest tightness, tension headaches. "I can help you find the right specialist," she said. "But I'd also like to know a little more about what you're dealing with, only if you're comfortable." He lowered his gaze. "I'm comfortable," he said. "I think I just needed someone calm today." Mira waited. She let him speak when he was ready. "I run a company," he began. Then he stopped. "Well, I ran a company. Things changed. Fast." His voice didn't sound bitter. It sounded tired. Mira listened, her hands folded on her lap. "I lost my father 2 years ago," he continued. "Since then, everything has been pressure, decisions, expectations, public eyes, investors, meetings." He shook his head. "There hasn't been one quiet day." She didn't know who his father was. She didn't know what company he ran. She didn't know the scale of his world. But she understood what stress could do. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "That sounds heavy." He looked surprised by her words. Not because they were dramatic, but because they were sincere. "It is," he admitted. "And I don't think I've said that out loud to anyone." Mira paused before responding. "Sometimes saying it is the first step to feeling lighter," she said. He watched her for a moment, studying her face. There was no judgment, no curiosity for gossip, no interest in his status, only genuine care. That was new for him. "Do you always talk to patients like this?" he asked, almost smiling. Mira shook her head lightly. "I talk to people like this." Rylan released a breath he had been holding. For a moment, his shoulders relaxed. His expression softened. She helped him complete the referral form. She asked the right questions, not intrusive ones, just enough to understand what he needed. "What does your day usually look like?" she asked. He rubbed his forehead. "Meetings, calls, emails, more meetings, late nights, early mornings." He paused. "And lately, noise. Too much noise." Mira nodded, understanding. "And your diet?" He let out a short breath. "Coffee. More coffee. Whatever my assistant hands me between meetings." She wrote that down quietly. "And sleep. Sometimes none." Mira met his eyes. "That's not sustainable." He gave a tired laugh. I know. My doctor said the same. She handed him a small brochure for a local specialist. This person can help with the physical symptoms, she said. But I hope you also take care of yourself outside of work. Rylan looked at her again, this time with deeper interest. How? He asked. She didn't rush the answer. By slowing down, she said. By choosing calm. By finding spaces that let you breathe. He held her gaze for a long moment. This place feels like that, he said quietly. Mira felt a small pull in her chest, a gentle one. I'm glad, she whispered. He couldn't look away. Something about her steadiness drew him in, not in a dramatic way, not in a romantic rush. It felt natural, easy, like he had entered a part of life he had forgotten existed. She stood and gathered a few papers for him. I'll print your referral, she said. Give me one moment. He nodded and watched her walk away. Her movements were calm, not rushed. Her presence softened the entire room. He realized he hadn't felt this level of peace in years. When she returned, she handed him the papers. Here you go, she said. You can call the office listed here to schedule your appointment. Rylan didn't take the papers immediately. He looked at her with a soft question in his eyes. Do you have time for tea? He asked. The question surprised her, but not because it was inappropriate. It surprised her because of how he asked it, quietly, gently, without pressure. Tea, she repeated. He nodded. Not dinner, not anything heavy, just tea. He paused. I think I need a moment of calm before I go back to my world. Mira held his gaze. She could have said no. She could have said she was tired. She could have said she didn't know him. But something in his eyes made her pause, a mix of honesty and quiet longing for peace. She gave a small nod. I can stay for tea. Relief washed over his face. They stood and walked out of the clinic together. The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow on the sidewalk. A small cafe sat across the street, a place with soft lights and wooden tables. They walked in, ordered chamomile tea, and sat by the window. For the first time in a long while, Rylan Crestmore felt safe enough to let his guard down. And for the first time in a long while, Mira felt a spark she didn't expect. Their hearts didn't rush toward each other. They simply leaned closer. Quietly, gently, naturally. This was the start of something neither of them saw coming. And their lives would never be the same. The tea arrived in white ceramic cups, steam rising in soft curls. The cafe was quiet, with only a few people scattered across the small tables. Warm light filled the room, giving everything a gentle glow. It was the kind of place where conversations softened and time slowed down. Mira wrapped her hands around her cup, letting the warmth settle into her fingers. She stole a quick glance at the man sitting across from her. Rylan Crestmore. She still didn't know his full story. She didn't know who he was in the outside world. She only knew the man in front of her looked tired, but grateful to be here. Rylan took a small sip of tea and let out a long breath, almost like he had been holding it in for days. This, he said quietly, is the first calm moment I've had in a long time. Mira looked up. I'm glad it helps. He studied her for a moment. You seem calm by nature. Has it always been that way? She smiled softly. Mostly. I grew up in a simple home in a quiet town. I learned early that peace is a choice. I worked hard to protect that choice. His eyes softened. I envy that. She didn't respond right away. She took a small sip of tea and felt the warm liquid settle in her chest. Everyone deserves peace, she said. Even people with busy lives. Rylan looked down at his hands. My life hasn't been peaceful in years. Mira waited. She didn't rush him. She didn't push for details. She let him speak when he was ready. My father passed away 2 years ago, he said. I never really recovered from it. I took over the company and everything grew heavy. Expectations, pressure, long nights. I stopped sleeping well. I stopped taking care of myself. Mira nodded gently. I'm sorry you went through that. He looked up at her again. Most people don't say that without asking what my father left behind. Money, position, influence. You didn't ask. She didn't break her gaze. Loss hurts, no matter who you are. Rylan let out a soft breath. Thank you. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence didn't feel awkward. It felt natural, soft, safe. Mira asked a simple question. What do you do for rest? He shook his head. I don't remember the last time I rested. She gave him a patient look. What did you used to enjoy? He leaned back slightly. I liked walking. I liked quiet places. I liked simple meals. I liked talking without thinking about the next meeting. Mira smiled. Those are easy things. You can go back to them. He took another sip of tea. I forgot they existed. Her smile widened slightly. Then today is a good reminder. He watched her as she spoke. He admired the way her eyes softened when she said something gentle. He liked the way she didn't force anything. She had a quiet strength that settled the air around them. I don't meet people like you often, he said. She blinked. Like me? Calm. Honest. Steady. You're not trying to impress me. You're not trying to pull me into anything. He paused. You're just here. Mira looked down at her cup. That's how I am with everyone. He smiled for the first time since stepping into the clinic. It wasn't a wide smile. It was small, subtle, but soft. I think that's rare, he said. A warm feeling spread across her chest, but she didn't show it. She simply nodded. After a few minutes, he cleared his throat. Do you have any plans after this? Mira shook her head. Not really. I plan to go home, make dinner, read. He smiled again, this time a bit more freely. That sounds peaceful. It is, she said. It's my favorite part of the day. What do you cook on evenings like this? He asked. She raised a brow. Are you always this curious? He chuckled softly. Only when the person is interesting. Mira looked down, shy but warm. I cook simple meals, vegetables, rice, soup. I like things that take time. He nodded. Time. I haven't given myself time in years. You can start today, she said gently. One slow moment at a time. Her words reached him in a way he didn't expect. He felt something loosen inside him, something that had been tight for too long. He rubbed his thumb over the edge of his cup. I'm grateful I came in today. Mira tilted her head. Because of the referral? No, he said softly. Because of you. She looked away for a moment, trying to steady her pulse. She wasn't used to compliments from strangers. She wasn't used to men speaking to her this gently. You're kind, she said. But you're tired. He let out a small laugh. That's true. They talked for another 20 minutes. He asked about her work. She asked about his daily routines. They talked about small things, books she liked, foods he avoided, the last time he took a real break. The conversation felt natural. At one point, he paused and looked at her more closely. Do you ever leave the town? He asked. She nodded. Sometimes. Small places, not cities. He smiled. I think I need more of that in my life. You can start small, she said. A walk, a break, a quiet place. He nodded slowly. Do you ever share this calm with people? He asked. She tilted her head. What do you mean? Your presence, he said. You make things feel lighter. Her cheeks warmed again. I try to help where I can feel that, Rylan said. The moment I walked into your clinic, it felt different. I didn't expect that. She took a slow sip of tea to keep her hands steady. I'm glad, she said quietly. He glanced at the clock and sighed. I should head back. She nodded. Long day ahead. He shook his head. Long year ahead. Mira understood the meaning behind those words. She didn't press for details. She simply stood as he stood. They walked outside together. The air was cool. The sun was settling behind the buildings. Soft orange light filled the street. He gave her a slow look, one filled with gratitude. Would you like to talk again sometime? He asked. She didn't answer immediately. She thought for a moment. Yes, she said softly. I would. Relief washed across his face. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card. "This has my number," he said. "Only if you want to reach out." She accepted it with a small nod. "Thank you." He hesitated for a second, then said, "Thank you for today." Then he walked toward his car, moving slower than before, as if leaving this moment felt harder than he expected. Mira watched him go. She held the card gently in her hand. Something inside her shifted. Not sharply, not loudly. It felt like the beginning of a soft tide moving toward her heart. She didn't rush home. She stood there for a few more seconds, letting the air settle around her, letting the weight of the moment sink in. She whispered to herself, "He needed calm." And she knew, without overthinking it, that she had given him something he didn't know how to ask for. When she finally turned to walk home, she carried a small smile with her. Not because she was in love, but because for the first time in a long while, her heart felt open again. Softly, gently, slowly. And that was enough. The months after their first meeting moved with an easy rhythm. Rylan reached out to Mira a few days after their tea, asking if she wanted to take a walk near the harbor. She agreed. They met at a quiet spot where the water made soft sounds against the wooden boards. Their steps fell in sync as they walked side by side. He talked about work, pressure, and expectations. She talked about routines, calm habits, and small joys. Their worlds were different, but their conversations felt natural. They didn't force intimacy. They didn't rush connection. They let each moment build slowly. When Rylan showed up late one evening, dressed in a plain jacket instead of one of his tailored suits, Mira noticed he looked lighter than before. "I skipped a meeting today," he said with a shy smile. "Why?" she asked. "I needed a break." She nodded. "Good." He laughed lightly. "You approve?" "I do." Their bond grew through simple actions, not dramatic gestures. He learned to breathe again. She learned to open her heart without fear. On their 6th walk, he reached for her hand. It wasn't planned. It wasn't rushed. His fingers brushed hers, and when she didn't pull away, he intertwined their hands gently. That moment marked a shift. Not loud, not intense, soft. Weeks turned into months. Rylan found himself spending more time in Mira's world than in his own. He liked her small townhouse. He liked the smell of her cooking. He liked watching her brew tea with quiet focus. He liked how she spoke in clear, simple sentences. She made him feel human, not like a public figure. One evening, while they sat on her couch sharing a simple dinner, he leaned back and said, "I never imagined peace felt like this." Mira looked at him with soft eyes. "It's not something you chase. You choose it." He nodded and placed his hand on hers. "You helped me choose it." Their relationship moved forward with steady steps. No games. No confusion. No pressure. Rylan began cutting back on late-night work. Mira supported him, but she never pushed. She simply encouraged balance. He brought her into his world slowly. He invited her to a quiet board dinner. She met 2 of his close colleagues. She handled the attention with grace, even when some guests whispered and tried to judge her modest background. Rylan noticed everything, and he defended her with calm certainty. "She grounds me," he said to them. "I can see that," one colleague replied. Their respect for Mira grew each time they saw how she softened Rylan's stress. But Mira's favorite moments weren't the dinners or the events. Her favorite moments were the quiet ones. Their soft talks after long days, their shared meals, their walks near the harbor, their simple nights watching the sky. She never asked for anything extravagant. She never asked for gifts or attention. She only asked for honesty and peace. Rylan admired that deeply. It made him look forward to each day. One night, after a long week, Rylan invited her to a small garden outside town. He said he had something planned. Mira didn't expect anything big. She thought it would be a simple dinner or a quiet walk. But when she arrived, she saw a neat arrangement of soft lanterns along a stone path. A small table stood at the center with 2 chairs and a simple white cloth. It wasn't flashy or extravagant. It was quiet, warm, gentle, just like her. Rylan walked toward her wearing a calm smile. "You did all this?" she asked. "I wanted to give you a moment as peaceful as the ones you've given me." She smiled slowly. "This is beautiful." They sat together. They ate simple food. They talked about small things. He listened to her stories. She listened to his hopes. Halfway through the evening, he stood from his chair, his movements slow and sure. She stared up at him, confused at first. Then, she saw his eyes soften with clarity. "Mira," he said quietly, "you gave me a home before I even knew I needed one." Her breath caught. Her hands tightened around the cloth napkin. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small ring. No diamonds, no flashes, a simple gold band with a smooth finish. "I don't need noise or crowds," he said. "I don't need luxury. I need calm. I need you. Will you marry me?" Her heart fluttered, not with panic, with warmth. She stood slowly. She placed a soft hand on his cheek. "Yes," she said. He closed his eyes for a moment, overwhelmed with relief. Then he placed the ring on her finger. They didn't kiss dramatically. They didn't cry loudly. They held each other in quiet embrace. Two people, finding peace in each other. Their wedding planning was simple. No big guest list. No cameras. No fancy celebrations. They chose a small garden she had loved since childhood. They invited close family and a few friends. The day of the wedding was warm and clear. The garden smelled of fresh flowers. Soft music played in the background. Mira wore a simple dress with light lace details. Rylan wore a plain suit. They exchanged vows under a wooden arch decorated with small flowers. Her mother cried softly. His eyes never left Mira. When the officiant said, "You may kiss," Rylan leaned forward and kissed her with gentle care. It was not a rushed kiss. It was steady, respectful, full of quiet certainty. They celebrated with a small dinner. Simple dishes, warm laughter, no loud speeches, just love, just family, just peace. Later that night, as they sat together under the soft glow of lanterns, Mira looked at him. "Do you feel calm?" she asked. Rylan took her hand. "I feel home." She leaned on his shoulder. "I hope you always feel that with me." He kissed the top of her head. "I will." Their early marriage reflected the values they built together. Simple meals at home, walks near the water, long talks in the evening, small trips to quiet towns, warm mornings with soft music. It wasn't perfect, but it was sincere. And it was their own. Mira believed this was the life she would have forever. She believed the man who found peace in her arms would always protect that peace. She believed their marriage would grow stronger with time. She didn't know the pressure waiting ahead. She didn't know the choices Rylan would make. She didn't know the quiet storms building around him. But for now, she lived in a moment of calm love. A moment she would remember long after everything changed. The early months of Mira and Rylan's marriage felt like a gentle breath. Their home was quiet, warm, and steady. Every day held something simple but meaningful, something that made them feel like they had carved out a private world away from pressure and noise. Their mornings began slowly. Mira often woke first, slipping quietly out of bed to brew tea. She liked the soft sound of water heating, the smell of fresh leaves, and the calm that filled the kitchen before the day started. Rylan would join her a few minutes later, still sleepy, his hair slightly out of place. He would wrap his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Morning," he would whisper. She smiled. "Morning." They shared tea in silence. Not awkward silence, but peaceful silence. The kind that feels like a soft blanket, warm and safe. Breakfasts were simple. Toast, eggs, fresh fruit. Mira cooked with care, and Rylan helped when he could. He chopped vegetables slowly, followed her instructions carefully, and laughed when she teased him about his uneven slices. "This is better than any meeting," he once said, placing a few crooked pieces on the plate. She smiled. "This is home." After breakfast, their days would often go separate ways. Mira walked to the clinic. Rylan headed to his office. But Rylan's life had shifted now. He wasn't buried in meetings the way he once was. He had learned to set boundaries, to take breaks, to breathe. "Take care of yourself today," Mira often told him. He always replied, "I will," and for a while, he did. Their evenings were her favorite. She returned from the clinic, often tired but content. She placed her bag on the counter, changed into something soft and comfortable, and started dinner. Rylan joined her soon after, rolling up his sleeves to help. They cooked side by side, laughing, talking, tasting as they went. Rylan had a habit of pointing to the pot and asking, "More salt?" Mira always replied, "Taste it first." They ate together at the small wooden table near the window. No TV, no noise, only honest conversations and simple food. "How was your day?" she asked him. "Better," he would say. "I kept things light, and I thought about our walk later." She smiled. "You're getting good at slow moments." He nodded. "You're teaching me." After dinner, they washed dishes together. Rylan loved the routine. Mira washed. He dried. They talked about the smallest things: her patients, his colleagues, a new book she found, a new tea blend he discovered. These small habits built their bond. They took walks after sunset, holding hands as they moved through quiet streets. Rylan talked about his father sometimes. Mira listened with care. She didn't push him to stop grieving. She didn't tell him to move on. She simply stayed beside him. He valued that more than any advice. "You make my world slow down," he told her once during a walk. "And you make mine grow," she replied. Their intimacy was soft and respectful. They touched gently. They held each other quietly. They didn't rush physical closeness. They let their bond deepen in a natural way, guided by comfort and trust. On weekends, they explored small towns. They visited farmers' markets, bought fresh vegetables, and tasted homemade treats. Mira showed him places she used to visit as a child. Rylan enjoyed seeing the world through her steady eyes. He began bringing her small gifts, not expensive ones, but thoughtful ones. A warm scarf, a new tea flavor, a plant for her kitchen windowsill. "I saw this and thought of you," he would say. She cherished every one. In return, Mira wrote him short notes. She placed them in his lunch bag or tucked them beside his coffee mug. "You're doing well. Remember to drink water. Proud of you. Thank you for today." Rylan kept those notes, every single one. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was sincere. It was built on gentle care, not grand gestures. They didn't need noise to feel connected. They needed presence. For a while, Mira believed this was the life she would live forever, but there were signs she didn't see at first. Small ones. Quiet ones. The first shift began when Rylan's company board contacted him again. They wanted him to return in a more active role. They said he had a talent for leadership. They said they needed him. Rylan listened politely but didn't commit. He told Mira about it later while washing dishes. "They want me back more often," he said. Mira wiped her hands on a cloth and turned to him. "How do you feel about it?" He paused. "I'm not sure." "Then don't rush it," she said. "Your peace matters." He nodded, but something in his eyes hinted at old pressure returning. A week later, his phone buzzed more often. Emails, calls, requests, meetings. He still kept boundaries at first. He still made time for Mira. He still cooked with her, walked with her, and slept beside her with ease. But as weeks passed, the calls grew more urgent. One night, he returned home later than usual. Mira was sitting on the couch with a book. She looked up when he walked in. "You're late," she said gently. "I know," he said, placing his bag down. "I'm sorry. The board needed me for something important." Mira smiled softly. "It's okay." But inside, a tiny worry formed. Another week passed. He came home even later. She kept dinner warm. She waited. She stayed patient. One night, he walked in tired, shoulders tight, tie loosened. "You didn't have to wait up," he said. "I wanted to." He sat beside her, and leaned his head back, closing his eyes. "I'm trying to balance everything," he said, "but the pressure is coming back." She placed a soft hand on his knee. "You don't have to carry it alone." He nodded, but didn't speak. That was the first time in months Mira felt something shift. It wasn't distance yet. It was the start of distance. Still, she believed he would choose balance again. She believed he had learned from the past. She trusted him. Their mornings remained warm. Their dinners remained soft. Their walks continued, but shorter. Their talks stayed honest, but his voice grew quieter. Mira sensed it, but she didn't panic. She gave him space. She believed love needed patience. Still, she watched small signs. He checked his phone more often. He stared at his messages longer. He talked less about his day. He seemed distracted. One evening, while making tea, she asked gently, "Are you okay?" He gave a small smile. "Just tired." "Tired from work?" she asked. "Tired from everything," he said, avoiding her gaze. She paused. "Do you want to talk about it?" "Not tonight," he said softly. She nodded, knowing she couldn't force him. That night, he held her a little tighter, as if afraid of losing something. She held his hand back, hoping it was enough. Her small world began to change slowly, like a soft wave pulling back from the shore. But she stayed steady. She believed in him. She believed in the vows they made. One night, as they stood in the kitchen cleaning dishes, Rylan looked at her with quiet sadness. "I'm trying," he said. She touched his arm gently. "I know." He gave a soft kiss on her forehead. "I'm lucky to have you." She smiled. "And I'm here. Always." She meant it. She didn't know the storms ahead. She didn't know the weight he carried was growing. She didn't know that keeping her safe was pushing him toward choices that would break them. For now, she held on to the warmth of the home they built. The soft touches, the quiet meals, the steady love. Because sometimes, love feels strongest right before it's tested, and Mira had no idea how much her love was about to be tested. The soft shift in Rylan's behavior became clearer with each passing week. Mira noticed it in the way he moved, the way he sat at the dinner table, the way he stared at his phone longer than before. It wasn't loud, but it was present, a quiet pull away from the peace they had worked so hard to build. Their mornings were still warm, but the warmth was shorter. Rylan still hugged her from behind, still kissed her shoulder, still whispered morning. But he didn't linger. He pulled, away faster. He checked his phone before finishing his tea. He answered messages while she cooked breakfast. The first time she saw it, she brushed it off. The second time, she felt a small pinch in her chest. The third time, she knew something had changed. Rylan tried to hide it, but Mira knew him well. She saw the tension. She saw the exhaustion growing again. She saw how his mind drifted even when he sat beside her. One evening, she made soup for dinner. It was one of his favorites. Simple broth, vegetables and soft herbs. She served it in warm bowls and placed them on the table. Rylan arrived home late, tie loosened, shoulders tight. "You're late," she said gently. "I know," he replied, exhaling hard. Everything piled up today. She sat with him. "Eat first. You need rest." He gave a weak smile, but didn't pick up his spoon yet. He rubbed his temples instead. "The board wants more from me," he said. "They say the company needs stronger direction." She stayed quiet, letting him speak. "They're pushing for long meetings again, more travel, more public appearances." He shook his head. "I thought I left that life behind." Mira reached across the table, placing her hand on his. "You promised yourself balance," she said. "Don't lose that." He looked at her with tired eyes. "I don't want to, but they make it sound urgent." "Is it urgent?" she asked. He hesitated. "I don't know." That answer told her everything. He wasn't sure. He wasn't grounded. He wasn't centered. The next morning, she found him standing by the kitchen counter staring at his phone. His jaw was tight. His fingers tapped nervously on the screen. "Another message?" she asked. He nodded. "A meeting before work." She stepped closer, Did you sleep well? He shook his head lightly. Not really. She touched his arm. You don't have to go right away. Eat first. He softened a little and sat down. She placed a plate in front of him. He took a few bites, but his mind wasn't in the room with her. When he rushed out the door minutes later, she stood still for a moment, holding the spoon she hadn't yet put down. The house felt quieter after he left. Not peaceful. Different. At the clinic, Mira tried to stay focused. She helped patients, prepared files, and maintained her usual warm tone. But a part of her carried worry. By the time she got home in the evening, she hoped Rylan would be there. But the house was empty. She cooked dinner anyway, hoping he would walk in soon. He arrived 2 hours later. Mira, I'm sorry, he said as he entered, rubbing the back of his neck. You're tired, she said. I'm drained, he corrected. Everything is falling on me again. She placed a hand on his chest. Did you tell them you need space? He looked away. Not yet. Why not? Because I don't want to look weak, he said. Mira held his gaze. Choosing health isn't weak. Rylan forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. He sat on the couch and leaned his head back, staring at the ceiling. She sat beside him quietly, resting her head on his shoulder. I miss us, she whispered. We're still here, he said, though his voice sounded unsure. She intertwined her fingers with his. Then stay here. He held her hand tighter for a moment, but then his phone buzzed again. He looked down at it instantly. Mira felt the shift like a small sting, but she didn't speak. She didn't want to fight. She wanted to understand. A few days later, the tension grew stronger. Rylan stayed late at work again. Mira made dinner. She waited. She checked the clock. She sat on the couch with a blanket wrapped around her legs. She told herself, he's stressed, not distant. He's just overwhelmed. But when he walked in with a tired sigh and didn't look her in the eye right away, the truth settled deeper. Their closeness was changing. Mira, he said that night, things might get busy again. She nodded slowly. I can support you, but I want us to stay connected. He kissed her forehead softly. We will. But even as he said it, his phone buzzed again. Mira watched him check the message. His face tightened. His shoulders rose. His breath changed. Something was pulling him away, not fully, not loudly, but steadily. Later that night, when he fell asleep beside her, she stayed awake for a few minutes. She traced her fingers along his hand, memorizing the warmth. She whispered quietly, Please don't drift. But Rylan didn't hear her. He was already slipping into a storm he wasn't ready to face, and one she didn't yet know existed. The pressure around Rylan grew heavier with each passing week. Mira watched him change quietly, the same way the seasons shift without warning. He was present in body, but not always present in spirit. His thoughts drifted during dinner. His eyes stayed fixed on his phone, longer than before. He slept less, talked less, smiled less. Mira stayed patient, giving him space but offering support whenever he paused long enough to receive it. She believed love was strongest when it held both comfort and honesty. But one afternoon, everything she feared became clear. She had just finished her last appointment at the clinic when a message came from an old client who lived at a hotel on Boylston Street. He needed a revised nutrition plan and asked if she could drop it off in person. She agreed, thinking it would be a simple task before heading home. She printed the plan, grabbed her bag, and took a cab to the hotel. When she arrived, the lobby was quiet, and soft music played overhead. She walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and stepped inside. As the doors began to close, a hand slipped between them, stopping the elevator. The doors slid open. Rylan walked in, but he wasn't alone. Beside him was a woman Mira did not know. Tall. Sharp clothes. Confident posture. A calm, controlled smile. Mira froze. Rylan froze. The woman didn't freeze. She looked at Mira without concern, without apology, almost with curiosity. Rylan swallowed hard, his eyes wide with panic. Mira. She stepped back slightly, the elevator doors closing behind her as she exited. She couldn't stand in that small space with them, not like this. Not with the scent of the woman's perfume clinging to Ryland's jacket. Her pulse quickened, but her face stayed calm. "Mira, wait," Ryland said, stepping out of the elevator after her. She stopped walking and turned toward him slowly. "How long?" she asked, her voice firm but quiet. He opened his mouth but hesitated. That was the longest second of her life. Then he looked down, unable to meet her eyes. 6 months, he whispered. The number struck her like cold water. The woman behind him didn't speak. She adjusted her purse and looked away as if she wasn't part of the moment, though the truth pressed against them all. Mira didn't cry. She didn't shout. She didn't break. She simply breathed in once, slowly, letting the truth settle. Then she asked, "Why?" Ryland's face tightened. "I was overwhelmed. I didn't know how to handle everything. I should have told you. I should have—" She held up her hand. "No long speeches," she said softly. "No excuses." He lowered his gaze again. She looked at the woman calmly. "What's your name?" The woman cleared her throat. "Kyra." Mira nodded once. "Then leave." Kyra stepped into the elevator without another word. The doors closed behind her, sealing away the final piece of the truth Mira needed. Ryland stepped closer, desperate. "Mira, I'm sorry. I made mistakes. I didn't mean—" "You did," she interrupted. "And now we're here." He reached out as if to touch her arm, but she stepped back. Not in anger, in acceptance. "I need space," she said. "Mira, please." "This is not a discussion," she said quietly. "This is a decision." He froze. She looked at him for a long moment. She saw the man she had once held in her arms, the man who had rested his head on her shoulder during quiet nights, the man who had promised calm and devotion. But she also saw the changes, the distance, the lies, the betrayal he chose to hide. Her voice stayed steady. "I'm going home." He nodded slowly, tears forming in his eyes. "Can we talk later?" She shook her head. "Later won't change what happened." She turned and walked toward the exit. Each step felt heavy, but her posture stayed straight. She didn't break down in the lobby. She didn't fall apart in the car. She held herself together with quiet dignity. When she reached home, she packed her bags with slow, steady hands. She placed her clothes in careful folds. She gathered her favorite books, her journals, her small comfort items. She didn't rush. Ryland entered the house an hour later. He looked devastated. He stood by the door, watching her pack. "Mira, I love you," he whispered. She paused for a second. Her hand rested on the handle of her suitcase. Then she turned to him with gentle eyes. "You loved peace," she said, "but you walked into chaos." He flinched. "You didn't lose me today," she continued softly. "You lost me months ago, when you started turning away." He stepped forward. "Can't we fix this?" "No," she said. "Not with anger. Not with hate. With clarity. Because I deserve honesty." He lowered his head, tears falling. She looked at him one last time. Her heart hurt, but her dignity stayed strong. "I hope you find yourself again," she said. "But not with me." She picked up her suitcase, walked to the door, paused. "Goodbye, Ryland." He whispered her name, voice trembling. "Mira." But she walked out with steady steps. She didn't slam the door. She didn't rush. She didn't look back. Her heart was breaking quietly. But her strength was rising quietly too. This was the end of their marriage, and the beginning of the truth she didn't know she needed. Mira left the house she once called home with quiet steps and a calm heart. The pain sat deep inside her chest, but she refused to let it turn into anger. She believed that dignity mattered more than noise. She believed that truth needed space. She believed that walking away could also be an act of strength. She spent her first night at her mother's house. Her mother didn't ask questions. She opened the door, held her daughter close, and let her cry in silence. Mira didn't speak much. She didn't explain. She curled into a soft blanket and rested her head on the couch cushion. Her mother sat beside her and stroked her hair gently. "You're safe here," her mother whispered. That was all Mira needed. The next morning she woke early and stepped outside to breathe the cool air. She watched birds move across the sky and let the breeze calm her mind. She didn't rush into decisions. She took the day slowly, letting her emotions settle before deciding what came next. Ryland sent messages. She didn't answer. She didn't block him. She simply chose silence. She wasn't ready to speak. She wasn't ready to look back. 2 days later, she packed her things again and moved into a modest townhouse she had found through a friend. It was small but comfortable. There were no memories tied to it, no. Old conversations echoing through the halls. It was a space she could build from the ground up. She stood in the empty living room, looking around at the blank walls and bare floor. She placed her suitcase down and knelt to open it. One by one she arranged her belongings with slow movements. A lamp near the window. A plant in the corner. Her books on a simple shelf. Her warm blankets folded on the couch. Every item she placed felt like a step toward healing. That night, she cooked a bowl of soup and ate at the small kitchen table. She listened to the quiet around her. For a few minutes, tears slipped down her cheeks, but she didn't fight them. She let them fall softly, then wiped them away and stood to wash the dishes. New beginnings, she whispered to herself. The next morning, she returned to the clinic. Her co-workers greeted her with warmth. They noticed she looked tired but didn't push for details. Mira appreciated that. She guided her patients with her usual calm, giving them steady care even though her heart was still mending. She kept her routine simple. Work, home, evening walks, journaling before bed. Little by little, her strength returned. She made a list titled, "What I Can Control." She wrote, "My peace, my choices, my healing, my growth." She placed the list on her bedroom mirror. At night, when loneliness crept in, she reminded herself that she had survived worse moments in life. She reminded herself that betrayal didn't define her worth. She reminded herself that love should never make someone feel small or confused. 3 weeks passed. She got used to the quiet of her new home. She decorated slowly. Soft curtains, warm rugs, small candles, light touches that made the space hers. She joined a local yoga class and started attending once a week. She liked the slow movements, the calm breathing, and the way her instructor always said, "Release what you cannot carry." Mira took those words to heart. She released Ryland piece by piece, not through anger, through acceptance. She didn't stalk his photos online. She didn't follow news about him. She didn't look at gossip sites. She focused on herself, her health, her peace, her growth, and slowly the ache inside her chest softened. Her friends visited often, bringing food, flowers, and warm hugs. They admired her strength, but didn't call her strong in a way that forced her to be tough. They let her be gentle. They let her heal quietly. One night, while writing in her journal, she penned a line she didn't expect. "I didn't lose myself. I found myself again." And as she set down her pen, she realized something important. Leaving Ryland didn't break her. It freed her. She was stepping into a new chapter, one built on truth, strength, and the peace she had always valued. Healing didn't come to Mira in a sudden rush. It came in small steps, the kind that don't look dramatic from the outside but change everything on the inside. Her days slowly grew brighter. Her heart grew lighter. Her mind settled into a calm rhythm again. Every morning, she woke up early, opened her windows, and let fresh air fill her small townhouse. She brewed her tea and stood quietly as the warm steam rose. She took slow breaths, reminding herself that she controlled her day, not her past. At the clinic, she worked with renewed focus. She guided her patients with gentle attention, sharing advice about balance, rest, and steady choices. Her own experience deepened her empathy. She understood pain differently now. She understood how hard it was to rebuild. Her patients noticed. "You look peaceful," one woman said. "I'm getting there," Mira replied with a soft smile. During her lunch breaks, she walked through the nearby park. She watched children run across the grass and elderly couples sit on benches. She breathed in the calm of simple moments. In the evenings, she cooked healthy meals and tried new recipes. She filled her home with the smell of herbs, baked vegetables, and warm spices. She took time decorating her space, soft pillows, calming colors, framed pictures from small trips she took alone. She wasn't lonely. She was rebuilding. One of the biggest changes came when she joined a women's support group in her area. The group met twice a month in a cozy community center where women shared their stories, struggles, and victories. Mira sat with them, listening, offering advice, and sharing her own journey when the time felt right. Her strength encouraged others. Her calm became a comfort. She didn't force it. She simply existed as herself. During one meeting, a woman asked her, "How did you move forward after losing so much?" Mira took a quiet breath. "I didn't lose myself," she said. "I only lost what wasn't meant to stay." The room grew silent as the words settled. Several women nodded, eyes soft with understanding. If you're watching this and you've ever had to rebuild after pain, tell me in the comments, what helped you heal the most? Your story might help someone else feel less alone. Mira's healing deepened in the months that followed. She took weekend trips to small towns, visiting bookstores, cafes, and quiet streets. She carried her journal with her everywhere, writing short reflections about moments that sparked gratitude. She took pottery classes and learned how to shape clay into smooth forms. She found the process soothing, the steady pressure, the gentle shaping, the way a lump of clay transformed under patient hands. Her instructor once told her, "Pottery teaches you that broken pieces can be reshaped." Mira smiled at that. The lesson wasn't lost on her. She also fostered abandoned pets from the local shelter. A shy cat stayed with her for a month, curling at her feet during cold evenings. Later, a small puppy with soft ears followed her from room to room, learning trust through her steady care. Helping others healed her too. During quiet nights, she often reflected on her time with Rylan, not to reopen wounds, but to understand herself better. She realized something important. She had given her heart honestly. She had loved with sincerity. She had stayed gentle, even when hurt, and that was something to be proud of. Her therapist, whom she met once a month, told her, "Pain didn't change you. It refined you." Mira took those words home with her. She wasn't the same woman she had been before the betrayal. She was stronger now, clearer, more grounded. She didn't look back with anger. She looked back with understanding. Some nights her phone lit up with messages from numbers she had blocked months ago. She ignored them. She had no interest in reopening old wounds. One evening, while reading on her couch, she whispered to herself, "I'm free." The words felt true. She no longer waited for closure. She no longer hoped for explanations. She no longer questioned her worth. She was shaping her life again, slowly, safely, and beautifully. Her future was wide open now, and something surprising was waiting just ahead, though she didn't know it yet. A new chapter, a new bond, a new beginning. But for now, she rested in the calm she worked so hard to build. Mira didn't plan to meet anyone new. She wasn't looking. Her heart was steady but still tender, still healing from the betrayal she carried quietly inside. She wanted time. She wanted room. She wanted days filled with calm, not complications. But life brings people into our path when we least expect it. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. The clinic had been busy. Mira finished a long session with a young man struggling with stress from long work hours. She guided him with her usual soft tone and kind questions. When she stepped into the lobby afterward, she was ready to head home and rest. Then the receptionist called her name. "Mira, someone asked if you're available for a consultation." She turned. A man stood near the front desk holding a folder. He wasn't tall or intimidating. He wasn't flashy. He carried himself with a soft confidence that felt grounded, not loud. His clothes were simple but neat. His posture relaxed. His eyes warm. He looked like someone who thought before he spoke. When he saw her, he gave a polite smile. "Hello," he said. "I'm here for guidance. I work long hours on construction sites, and my diet is..." Not great. His voice was steady, clear. No arrogance, no pressure. Mira stepped closer, returning his smile. I can help with that. I'm Mira. I'm Liren Holt, he said. Nice to meet you. The way he said it felt sincere. Not forced, not practiced. She gestured toward her office. We can talk in here. He followed her inside, taking a seat while she closed the door behind them. She grabbed her notepad and sat across from him, noticing how he took in the room, soft lights, calm colors, small plants she cared for each morning. I like your office, he said. Feels peaceful. Thank you, she replied. That's what I try to create. He nodded, placing his folder on the table. I'm an architect. My schedule gets hectic. Sometimes I forget to eat or I grab whatever is closest on site. I'm starting to feel it in my energy. She wrote down a few notes. Tell me about your routine. We'll take it step by step. Their conversation flowed easily. He answered her questions with quiet honesty. He talked about long days, late nights, unpredictable meals, and the strain of overseeing large projects. He wasn't dramatic. He wasn't self-pitying. He was realistic. At one point he paused and said, I know I need to change. I just don't know where to start. Mira looked up and met his eyes. You already started by coming here. He smiled softly, a smile that reached his eyes. I guess you're right. For a moment, something warm moved between them. Not romantic, not heavy, just kind. She continued with her questions, setting clear, simple goals. He listened closely, nodding often. When she handed him a sample meal plan and a breathing technique to manage stress, he looked impressed. This is helpful, he said. You explain things in a way that makes sense. I try to keep things simple, she replied. That's why it works, he said. The compliment caught her off guard. She felt a small flutter inside, but quickly steadied herself. She stayed professional. She stayed warm but neutral. After the session, Liren stood and shook her hand. Thank you for your time, he said. I feel better already. You're welcome, she said. He smiled again, softer this time. I'll be back next week. She nodded. I'll be here. When he left the office, the room felt different, lighter, warmer. Mira stood still for a moment, replaying the conversation in her mind. She wasn't falling for him. She wasn't thinking about romance, but she felt something gentle, a spark of curiosity, the first in a long time. That evening, while making dinner, she found herself thinking about the way Liren listened, the way he smiled, the quiet steadiness he carried. Not exciting, not overwhelming, just safe. She didn't tell herself stories. She didn't read into anything. She simply allowed the thought, he seems kind. And for the first time since her divorce, that thought didn't feel frightening. It felt possible. Healing had created space, and life had placed someone gentle in that space, not to replace the past, but to show her that her heart was still capable of opening again. Slowly, safely, softly, Liren returned the next week exactly as he promised. Mira noticed something different about him the moment he stepped into her office. He looked brighter. His shoulders weren't as tight. His eyes held more energy. He sat with a calm confidence that hinted he had been trying to follow her guidance. I've been eating better, he said with a warm smile. Not perfect, but better. That's progress, she replied. Small changes add up. He nodded. I've also been trying that breathing technique you showed me. It helps more than I expected. She smiled gently. I'm glad. Their session moved smoothly. He shared updates, and she adjusted his plan. They talked about stress, balance, and daily routines. But something else was there. Something soft, something unspoken. Liren paid attention to her words in a way that felt different. Not romantic, not forward. Respectful, genuine. When the session ended, he lingered for a moment, holding the folder she had given him. Can I ask you something? He said. Of course. What made you choose this line of work? You seem made for it. The question surprised her. Most patients didn't ask about her life. She paused. I like helping people find calm, she said. I grew up in a simple place. Peace was always important to me. I wanted to share that. He nodded slowly, studying her face with quiet admiration. It shows, he said. Her cheeks warmed slightly. She lowered her gaze, then looked back up. Thank you. He walked out of her office afterward, but he turned back at the door. Have a good day, Mira, he said. You too, Liren. After he left, she sat for a moment, letting the conversation settle. Something about him felt steady, safe, not overwhelming, not demanding. She wasn't falling fast. She wasn't falling blindly. She was noticing, and noticing felt like a step forward. Over the next few weeks, Liren returned for his follow-up sessions. Each time their conversations drifted a bit more toward personal topics, books they liked, places they enjoyed visiting, small routines that made them feel grounded. One afternoon, while discussing his progress, Mira mentioned a coastal trail she often walked when she needed to clear her mind. Liren's eyes lit up. I know that trail, he said. I used to go there when I first moved to the city. It's peaceful. She smiled softly. It is, maybe, he said, hesitating. You could show me your favorite part of the trail sometime. Only if you're comfortable. Her heart skipped once, not from fear, but from the gentle tone of his voice. She took a breath. I think I'd like that, she said. He smiled, and the warmth in his expression was quiet but unmistakable. They chose a Saturday afternoon. The day was bright, with a soft breeze moving through the trees. Mira wore simple clothes, comfortable, light, easy to walk in. Liren arrived early, leaning against his car with his hands in his pockets. When he saw her, his smile widened. You look relaxed, he said. I try, she replied lightly. They walked along the trail with slow, steady steps. Birds moved through the branches. Leaves rustled under their feet. The path curved gently along the coastline, giving them a clear view of the water. For a while, they didn't talk. They didn't need to. The quiet felt natural between them. At one point, Liren glanced at her and said, You walk like someone who knows how to breathe. She laughed softly. I take long breaths on this trail. It shows. They found a wooden bench overlooking the water and sat side by side. Not touching, not leaning in, just sharing space. Liren rested his hands on his knees. I haven't felt this calm in a long time, he said. Mira looked at the waves, moving gently across the surface. Calm finds you when you're ready. He turned his head toward her. Or when someone helps you reach it. She met his eyes for a moment. The silence between them carried an unspoken truth, something soft, something real, something growing. But she didn't rush it. He didn't push it. They simply allowed the moment to breathe. As they walked back to the trail entrance later, Liren paused before getting into his car. Mira, he said, thank you for today. You're welcome, she replied. He gave her a warm, steady look. I hope we can do this again. She nodded. We can. And as she walked home, she felt a gentle warmth in her chest, a feeling she thought she had lost forever. Not a spark of passion, not a rush of emotion, something safer, something deeper, something real. She wasn't in love, but for the first time since her heart broke, Mira felt ready to let someone new stand close. While Mira rebuilt her life quietly, Rylan entered a new chapter that looked perfect from the outside, but felt hollow behind closed doors. His relationship with Kyra moved fast, too fast. Within months of Mira leaving, the media began circulating photos of Rylan and Kyra at events, restaurants, and meetings. Kyra loved attention. She leaned into cameras, smiled with confidence, and dressed like every moment needed to be captured. Rylan stayed behind her in most photos, his expressions polite but tight. The public labeled them a fresh start. Headlines praised their pairing. They called Kyra stylish and sharp. They called Rylan a man who found love again. Behind the scenes, the story was different. Their relationship didn't grow from comfort or healing. It grew from pressure. Rylan believed he owed her loyalty. He believed protecting her earlier mistake meant he should commit. He believed he couldn't leave without exposing the truth behind the company's scandal he carried alone. Kira never mentioned the past. She focused on appearances. She planned photo shoots, meetings with influencers and public dinners. She pushed him to attend more events. She insisted on bigger crowds, larger venues, louder nights. Rylan, already drained, followed her pace. He convinced himself he was doing the right thing. He convinced himself that choosing Kira was a way to take responsibility. But each day, he felt further away from himself. When they began planning their wedding, Kira took full control. She hired expensive planners, chose a massive venue, and selected a guest list filled with high-status names. She wanted a grand celebration, something viral, something unforgettable. Rylan wanted something simple, but he didn't speak up. He was tired. He was guilty. He was afraid of stirring more trouble. On the morning of the wedding, he stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie. His reflection looked calm, but his chest felt tight. He had a steady career, a new home, and a public image of success, but no peace. He thought of Mira, not because he wanted her back, not because he regretted her leaving, but because she represented a life he couldn't return to, a life built on truth, a life built on calm, a life built on steady love. He inhaled slowly, then stepped into the wedding hall. The lights were bright. Guests smiled. Cameras flashed. Kira glowed in her dress, flawless from head to toe. She carried herself like she owned the room. Rylan smiled politely beside her, but nothing inside him felt real. The ceremony was loud, the applause sharp, the music grand. The guests exaggerated their cheers. It felt like a performance meant for everyone, except the couple standing at the front. When he said "I do," his voice didn't shake. It didn't break. It simply lacked warmth. He kissed Kira. He held her hand. He faced the crowd. They cheered. But deep down, he knew something was waiting beneath this celebration, something he had buried, something he feared. He didn't know the secret would break open before their first dance. The wedding hall buzzed with energy. Influencers streamed live videos. Photographers circled the room. Guests in luxury outfits laughed loudly, raising glasses even before the formal toast began. The space looked perfect, decorated with shimmering lights and tall floral displays that reached toward the ceiling. Kira walked through the room with confidence, soaking in every stare. She posed for photos, laughed at every compliment, and checked her reflection in nearby mirrors. This was her stage, and she wanted every angle to shine. Rylan walked slower. His steps were steady, but his eyes kept scanning the room. He felt out of place among the noise. The air felt heavy, the lights too bright. Even as people congratulated him, he responded with polite smiles rather than excitement. "Smile more," Kira whispered at one point. "This is our moment." He nodded, but his chest tightened again. Behind the scenes, Jani, Mira's friend who worked as a pastry chef, moved between tables carrying trays of desserts. She noticed everything. She saw how Kira glowed under attention and how Rylan stayed stiff, shoulders tense. She whispered to a co-worker, "He doesn't look happy." Her co-worker shrugged. "These events aren't about happiness, they're about image." Jani frowned. She thought about Mira. She thought about the quiet wedding Mira once had. Two opposite worlds. As the ceremony ended and guests began settling for the dinner, a slight disruption caught Jani's eye. A man stood near the entrance, gripping a small envelope in both hands. His clothes didn't match the crowd. His posture seemed tight, almost anxious. He looked nothing like the other guests. He wasn't laughing. He wasn't taking photos. He wasn't mingling. He watched Rylan with an expression Jani couldn't read. Minutes later, the lights dimmed for the toast. Kira stood tall, ready to revel in the moment. Rylan stepped beside her, trying to steady his breath. The host picked up the microphone. "Let's celebrate this beautiful couple." He didn't finish. The man with the envelope stepped forward. Security rushed toward him, but he held up a hand. "Please, I need to speak." Rylan raised his palm calmly. "Let him talk." Gasps echoed through the room. Kira stiffened beside him. The man swallowed hard, then stepped to the microphone. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said, voice trembling. "But the truth matters today." He held up the envelope. "My name is Soren Vale. I used to work for Crestmore Technologies." Whispers rippled. Someone at a nearby table covered their mouth. Ryland's face drained of color. Kira's eyes narrowed. Soren opened the envelope with shaking fingers. "This contains the report about the financial decision that removed Ryland Crestmore from his own company. The report he took the blame for." The room grew silent. Soren continued, voice clear now. "He didn't do it for himself. He didn't do it out of greed. He did it to protect someone in this room." He turned his eyes directly to Kira. "You." Gasps exploded through the hall. Cameras flashed. Kira froze. "You moved the funds," Soren said. "You pressured him to hide it. He lost everything to protect you." Kira's lips parted, but no words came out. Soren placed the envelope on the table. "Everyone deserves to know the truth, especially the woman he hurt to keep this secret." Ryland didn't speak. Kira stepped back, trembling. And the wedding, her perfect wedding, began to crack apart. Mira spent that evening at home, curled up on her couch with a warm blanket around her legs. She had planned a quiet night, tea, a book, and maybe a soft movie. Her townhouse felt calm, the air filled with the faint scent of vanilla from a small candle she lit earlier. She didn't think about Ryland. She didn't think about Kira. She didn't think about the wedding happening that same night. Her heart had moved forward. But peace has a way of being interrupted when the truth finally breaks open. Her phone buzzed on the table beside her. She glanced at it, expecting a message from a friend. Instead, she saw Jani's name, her dear friend who worked as pastry staff at the event. The text read, "Mira, something happened at the wedding. You need to hear this." Mira sat up straighter. Her breath slowed. She opened the message. Jani continued. "A man exposed everything. The company's scandal. What truly happened. You weren't the reason he changed. You were never the problem." Mira blinked, confused for a moment. She typed, "Jani, what do you mean?" Jani called immediately. Mira answered, heart steady but alert. Jani's voice shook on the other end. "Mira." Someone stood up during the toast. He said Ryland didn't lose his company through mistakes. He protected someone. He protected Kira. Mira didn't speak. "He covered up her actions," Jani continued. "He took the blame. The board forced him out because he defended her. He hid everything so no one would know." Silence filled the line. Mira's eyes softened, not with anger, but with deep understanding. "He didn't cheat because he stopped caring about you," Jani said quietly. "He cheated because he fell into a mess he didn't know how to escape." Mira leaned back against her couch, letting the truth settle like a soft wave. She closed her eyes. For months, she had wondered if she wasn't enough, if she lacked something, if she pushed too hard or gave too little. But the truth had been hidden behind layers of guilt and pressure. Ryland had been drowning long before he met Kira. And she, Mira Solis, had never been the cause of his fall. Jani's voice softened. "You deserve to know. Thank you," Mira whispered. "Are you okay?" Jani asked. Mira took a slow breath. "Yes," she said. "I'm okay." Not relieved, not hurt, just calm. After ending the call, Mira sat quietly for several minutes. The candle flickered beside her, casting soft shadows across the room. She let her emotions move freely, sadness, clarity, closure. She whispered to herself, "He didn't lose me because I wasn't enough. He lost me because he lost himself." Her heart didn't tighten. It relaxed. She placed her hand over her chest. For the first time since the divorce, she felt something that had been missing. Peace. Deep, steady, unshakable peace. The morning after Jani's call, Mira woke earlier than usual. The sunlight filtered through her curtains in soft streaks, warming her room. She sat on the edge of her bed for a moment, letting the quiet settle around her. The truth had changed something inside her. Not her past, not her pain, but her understanding. She didn't feel anger toward Rylan. She didn't feel longing. She felt clarity. As she brewed her morning tea, her phone vibrated on the counter. The screen lit up with a name she hadn't seen in months. Rylan. Mira paused, then answered with steady breath. His voice sounded tired. "Mira, can we talk?" She didn't rush to respond. Then she said softly, "Yes," in a calm place. They agreed to meet at a cafe near the harbour. It was a place they used to visit in the early days of their relationship, before noise and pressure changed their lives. Mira arrived first. She chose a small table near the window. When Rylan walked in, he looked different, not wealthier, not colder, but older in a way that didn't come from age, heavier, worn down, humbled. He sat across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. Mira broke the silence. "How was the wedding?" He exhaled sharply, eyes dropping to the table. "Not how anyone expected." She nodded. "I heard." He looked up, shame in his eyes. "I never wanted you to find out like that. How you wanted me to find out doesn't matter anymore," she replied softly. "What matters is what you choose to do with the truth." He swallowed, his voice shaky. "Mira, I failed you. I hurt you. I walked into a fire and dragged you along without saying a word." She didn't flinch. "You lost yourself long before I left." He nodded slowly. "I did." He leaned his elbows on the table, hands clasped. "I didn't cheat because I stopped caring. I cheated because I was drowning. And Kira, she was part of everything I was trying to hide. I felt trapped." Mira listened without interrupting. "You deserved better," he said. "You were the only person who ever wanted nothing from me, and I still let you go." "You didn't let me go," she said gently. "I chose to leave." He closed his eyes for a moment, as if her words reached something deep inside him. "I'm not asking for anything," he said quietly. "Not forgiveness. Not another chance. I just needed you to know the truth." She nodded again. "I know it now." He looked at her with soft eyes. "Do you hate me?" "No," she said. "I don't." He blinked. "You don't?" "Hate keeps you stuck," she said. "I want to move forward." He let out a shaky breath, almost like relief mixed with sorrow. Mira reached for her bag and stood slowly. "I hope you heal, Rylan. I hope you reclaim the parts of yourself you lost." He stood too. "Mira, I'm sorry." "I know," she whispered. Then she walked out into the morning light. No anger, no regret, only peace. It was the closure they both needed, and the final goodbye to the life they once shared. 2 months passed after Mira's final conversation with Rylan. She didn't rush into anything new. She continued her quiet routines, cooking warm meals, taking long walks, tending to her plants, and showing up for her patients with steady care. Her heart was calm again. Her days were simple. Her nights were peaceful. Then Liren Holt stepped back into her life in a way she didn't expect. He visited the clinic for a follow-up appointment, carrying the same warm presence he always had. When he saw her, his smile grew, not wide or dramatic, but soft and sincere. "Good to see you again," he said. "You too," she replied. Their session flowed with ease. He talked about progress in his health. She adjusted his plan. They shared small laughs. When it ended, he hesitated before standing. "Mira," he said, rubbing the back of his neck, "I know this isn't usual, but would you like to get dinner sometime? Outside the clinic?" Her heart paused, not from fear, but from surprise. She looked at him carefully. His expression wasn't pushy. He wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't rushing anything. He was simply hopeful. She took a breath. "I'd like that." His shoulders relaxed with quiet relief. "Great. I know a small place near the harbour. Calm atmosphere. Good food." She smiled. "That sounds perfect." They met that evening at a little restaurant overlooking the water. The place had dim lighting, warm wooden tables, and soft music playing in the background. Mira wore a simple dress. Nothing flashy, just comfortable. Liren wore a neat shirt and a gentle smile that didn't fade once she arrived. They spoke about small things at first. Books they enjoyed, places they traveled, memories from childhood. The conversation was natural, steady, never forced. Mira felt her heart opening slowly, the way a flower opens with the right amount of sunlight. At one point, Liren asked, "What brings you peace these days?" She thought for a moment. "Knowing I'm living in truth, and choosing who gets close to me." He nodded. "That's important. You deserve people who treat you gently." His words touched her more than she expected. After dinner they walked along the harbor. The water reflected the night lights, moving in soft waves. Liren walked beside her with quiet respect, matching her pace, letting the silence rest comfortably between them. When they reached the end of the pier, he stopped and turned toward her. "Mira," he said softly, "I want to be clear. I'm not rushing anything. I'm not expecting anything. I just like being around you, and I'd like to see where this could go." She looked into his eyes and saw no pressure, no noise, no chaos. Only sincerity. "I'd like that too," she said. He reached for her hand, slowly, gently. She let him. Their fingers intertwined with quiet ease, and for the first time in a long time, Mira felt something new blooming inside her. Not fear, not doubt, hope. A soft beginning to a love that respected her pace and her heart. In the weeks that followed their first dinner, Mira and Liren grew closer in a slow and natural way. They didn't rush into daily messages or constant calls. They respected each other's routines. Their bond deepened the same way quiet mornings begin, soft, warm, and steady. Liren took her on small dates that matched her calm nature. A walk through a botanical garden, a quiet breakfast at a hidden cafe, an evening drive to watch the sunset over the water. He paid attention to her comfort. He never pushed her into loud places or fast moments. He asked questions gently. He listened fully. He held her hand only when she reached for his. One evening, they sat together on the wooden pier where they first shared a soft connection. The air smelled of salt. The waves moved in a slow rhythm. Mira tucked her hair behind her ear as a light breeze passed. Liren watched her with a warm expression. "You look peaceful tonight." "I feel peaceful," she said. "I haven't felt this in a long time." He nodded with understanding. "You deserve a life that feels calm." She looked at him for a long moment, studying the sincerity in his eyes. "I didn't think I would trust someone again so soon." "You don't have to rush trust," he said softly. "I'm here, at your pace." Those words settled deep in her heart. Gentle, respectful, safe. She leaned her head against his shoulder. He didn't move, didn't startle, didn't try to pull her closer. He simply stayed still, giving her a quiet space to rest. They sat like that for several minutes, letting the evening settle around them. "Mira," he said after a pause, "I don't want to be a chapter that fills a gap. I want to be someone who adds peace to your life, someone who helps you grow, not someone who takes from you." She lifted her head to look at him. "You already do," she said. He smiled gently. "I'm glad." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting soft orange reflections on the water, Liren reached for her hand. She let him hold it. Her fingers curled around his naturally. He whispered, "Where do you see yourself a year from now?" Mira took a slow breath. "Healthy," she said, "loved, building something steady, and hoping whoever is beside me shares the same values." Liren squeezed her hand lightly. "I'd like to be that person." She smiled, soft, full, real. "I'd like that too." They walked back toward the town together, their hands still intertwined. The night air felt cool, but Mira felt warm inside. Her heart wasn't racing. It wasn't uncertain. It wasn't afraid. It was open. It was ready. As they reached the end of the pier, she glanced at him and said, "Thank you for being patient with me." "You make patience easy," he replied. She laughed quietly, and he joined her. For the first time in a long time, Mira realized she wasn't healing anymore. She was living. She was hopeful. She was ready to love again. And this time, her peace would not be sacrificed. Not for stress, not for pressure, not for secrets. She was walking into a future built on softness, with a man who matched her calm, and a heart that felt whole again. Thank you for staying until the end of this story. If this touched your heart in any way, take a second to support the channel. Your engagement helps these stories reach more people who need comfort and lessons about love, honesty, and strength. Tell me in the comments, which part of Mira's journey spoke to you the most? Was it her quiet strength, her healing, or the moment she finally chose peace? If you've ever rebuilt your life after heartbreak, your story might give someone else the courage to do the same. I read every comment, so share your thoughts below. Please like this video so more viewers can find it. Subscribe if you want more stories about growth, love, and the choices that shape us. And share this with someone who might need a reminder that healing is possible, even after painful endings. Thank you for being here. Until the next story, stay strong, stay gentle, and protect your peace.